Alright, my name is Alex, I'm from Ace Meats. I'm going to show you how to cut up a whole hog by yourself at home. A lot of people are taking home free hogs and stuff right now because there's such a huge population of them that are just getting slaughtered. So what we're going to try to do is show you how to do this at your house so that you can maximize the amount of meat that you get, and you're also going to be able to get your cuts the way that you want them instead of just hacking them up and trying to do it. So first thing you're going to want to do, if you get a half a hog like this from your butcher shop, usually you can buy them just in halves, ready to take home. Take a look at your bacon. That bacon, it's got a few little marks in here. I stunned this one. But what you're going to want to do is make sure that that bacon looks pretty much smooth. If it's got a lot of cuts in it, find yourself a different butcher shop. It ain't worth it. First thing, this is your leaf lard right here. They should have pulled it for you. If they didn't, this is going to be very difficult for you. But if they did, bring it out over your shoulder. That's going to make some good lard if you grind it up or if you sweat it down. Second thing, start at the bottom, feel around with your knife. Sometimes this bottom rib is a little bit hard to find. Right here is that bottom rib. That's in between. You want to count up 1, 2, 3, 4 ribs. Right in between those, that fourth and fifth rib, you're going to come up, turn it around, find your knife mark, come all the way through. And this is very important. You come all the way through to that bone and all the way through to this bone. Some people leave about an inch of meat here, and this doesn't work if you do that. Second, grab it somewhere down in the neck. If you got a hook, that works great. If you got your hands, you're more likely to drop it, but it's your own pig, so who cares? Bring it up, push it down. That whole piece should come off, just like that. So we're going to quarter this thing out first, and then I'll show you how to cut up the rest of it. Probably the hardest part of doing this is knowing where to separate this bacon off from. So you're going to separate this bacon from your pork loin. If you look right here, there's kind of a line that goes between the ham and the pork loin. So I'm going to try to get this so that you can see it. If you come in here, this is your sirloin tip. You're going to come around that. This is going to be the tail on your pork loin. You want about a 1/2 inch tail on there. So we're going to come in close. Okay? And you want to end up about a 1/2 inch from that kidney, somewhere in there. And if you don't end up close enough, or you end up too far away, or you end up too close, if you end up too close, you're going to get into your pork loin. If you end up too far away, you're going to be missing part of your bacon, and you don't want to do that. Secondly, I'm going to have Levi come help me here. If you want to take this, oops, got that floor non-food contact surface. So you can hold that. And normally at work I've got a handsaw, but today we're using our trusty dusty sawzall, so I'm going to bring it around here. And I like to, just because it makes it a little bit easier. At home, I wouldn't normally do this, but just because it makes it a little bit easier. If you can draw your line straight down before you start, so you kind of know where you're going to be, and then you take your sawzall. Okay, so now you got your pork loin, you got your bacon. We'll throw that up on the table. Thank you. Secondly, you're going to take this hip bone right here. You're going to go about a thumb's width below that hip bone. What that's going to do is that's going to separate your sirloin portion from your ham portion. And that's going to be, I'll have Levi, you want to hold this for me too? Okay, so we'll go just about right there. It's not going to come all the way off, so just hold it straight down. And right through the end of that tailbone. So that you got just a little bit of tailbone, you're about an inch below that hip bone right there. Now, we'll take it with the knife, and if you did it right, which that's pretty close, you should end up with a flat surface so you can start cutting your chops right off the bat. So now, you've got your 4 pieces. You've got what's called the chuck, your bacon, your loin, and then your ham is hanging up right there, and we'll deal with that later. I'm not going to cure the ham or bacon myself today. I might make a video on how to do that later on, but for right now, we're just going to deal with straight cutting, get everything ready, and then you can kind of figure some of this out on your own. So, this is one of the more difficult pieces to deal with. I get them with the head on. It's got a little bit of cheek meat in there. That's good stuff. Might as well have it. You're going to want to separate this right at where this head comes off. So if you just kind of stab in there, right at the base of the head, and open it up, you're going to find this joint right here. That's going to open up for you. You can then take that head right off. And now that, some people like to make head cheese. I'd take the eye out if you're going to do that, but I'm going to turn it into trim, so we're not going to cover that. Sometimes when you stick it, you're going to get a little bit of blood in here. Most of the time when you stick it, you're going to get a little bit of blood in here. So the first thing I like to do is come in, trim out some of that blood spatter that's in there. And we're going to go ahead and call this our garbage here. That's just going to go away. Then, turn it around. You see you've got these ribs in here. You want to slide your knife right underneath those ribs as tight as you possibly can. You want to turn that knife blade up towards the ribs so that you're staying directly onto them. Okay, come up and around the brisket, just like that. Work it down. Okay, we're going to go the opposite direction. Work it around. And there's a pin bone right there. Right here, there's a row of pin bones. So you're going to come up and your knife's going to kind of stop. Turn your knife and just go around them. It's a real small bone. And then you're going to go straight out the spine, just like that. You got that kind of freed up. You want to keep freeing it up. It's not an exact science. Just try to hold close to that bone as much as you can. Down the neck. Down the neck on the other side. Okay. And then, right here, there's a row of bones that are, we like to call them feather bones. But if you see, you can kind of cut through right at the tip of that rib. If you have a saw and you're more comfortable using that, then use it. Sometimes they're a pain to get through, but you can cut that piece off. This piece you do need a saw for. Levi, will you help me one more time? Move this off to the side once. This is not a lesson in safety, okay? Be careful. This isn't teaching you how to not chop your fingers off. This is teaching you how to cut up a pig. Will you hold this for me? Just like that. And I'm gonna take the Sawzall blade and just cut that row of ribs off right there. And this is gonna be the front half of your spare rib. That's a small piece. You can bone it out or you can keep it with your other set of spare ribs. I'm going to keep it with my other set of spare ribs. I'll just trim off this little end bloody piece here. And that's neck bones. You can cut these into pieces, make soup out of them, whatever you want. I'm going to bone that out later, so I'm not interested in that. This is probably the hardest portion of actually cutting it after you've got it broke. Now this would technically be the brisket on the pig, right? And in here, there's a joint right about there, if I'm right. We'll see. Like I said, I got a saw at work for this, but we're gonna try to do it with a knife, because if you're working at home, you probably don't have a bandsaw with you. So feel around a little bit. You will find that joint eventually. See here, might be a little higher up than I thought it was. Right there. You want to get close up on that. You see how that joint just kind of opens up right there? Okay, we're going to take it off and we're just going to work our way through that joint. Just like that. And there's actually a bone that comes up this direction. So we're going to go up that direction. And then we're going to cut it off straight. And now this would be your pork hock. Do whatever you want with that. I'm going to bone it out. I like to, at this point, take that knob off of there. And we're going to try to not cut the table. Let's see how that works. Will you put a hand right here? Thank you. So I'm going to cut this piece off just to square it up. Okay. And we'll cut that off flat. From here, going this direction, you're going to have your armrests. Okay, and let's see if we can find here. There is a vein. It's kind of hard to see in this, but there's a vein about right here. And what you want to do is find that vein, and then you're going to go about an inch to the right of it, or an inch towards your pork butt. There should be a joint right there. You can't see it, I can't see it, and we'll see how good we do at it, but hopefully we're close. Okay, we're really close, right there. So, spread this out here. And right, see if I can open it up so you can see it. Right there, see there's a ball joint that opens up. That ball joint will open up. You're gonna go straight through it. And then try to, how's the lighting on that? Is that right?
Yeah, that's okay.
All right, you're gonna go straight through it just like that. Now this is your arm. And what what I would do is you cut this into 2 pieces like that. How many I would go, I'll just show you in case you want to do it. I'm going to bone this piece out for sausage, but normally at the shop we would cut this for arm roasts. I'll show you how that looks. Move this a little bit. Okay. I would cut this into 2 pieces. Just go through the bone, not quite through there. Okay. Go through the bone and then take it the rest of the way with your knife. And then if you wanted, clean up that little bit of blood here. If you want, you trim up that tail, flip it over, trim up a little bit of this side. That's all going to go into our trim. Going to go into our trim bucket, and this is going to be a nice arm roast, and this, again, you just trim up kind of around, and then you take this little tail off right here, and that's going to be your other arm roast. That's the ball joint side, and that's the actual bone side. So those look pretty decent. You can scrape them off with your knife if you want to take the time. Like I said, I'm going to bone them out, so I don't really care. This piece right here you might recognize. This is your pork butt. This is a whole pork butt. Most people won't use a whole pork butt. If you're a smoking type of person, you might take this whole thing. I would advise, if you are going to use the thing as a whole, you can kind of see where this bone ends. And you can kind of see where that circle starts. This is the neck portion of it. That neck doesn't make as good of a roast. So I like to just take a little bit, couple inches off of that end, and then you've got your whole pork butt. You can take and smoke that. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut it into 3 pieces so that we've got some pork roast. You can use that for pulled pork, whatever you want to do. Take your knife, get down to the bone level. There's a blade bone in here. Take it down until you feel that bone. Take your Sawzall. Just through the bone. Just enough to get through that bone. Same here. Okay. Once you're through that bone, you can just take and use a knife. And it'll come the rest of the way off. There's a pork butt roast. There's a pork butt roast. Scrape it up a little bit. You might actually recognize that piece a little bit. Scrape that up. There's 3 good sized pork butt roasts you can take. You can use for pulled pork, make it for a pot roast, whatever you want to do. I'll clean those up later, trim some of the fat off the back. That's going to be a cut. And I'm going to start lining up cuts here on the end of the table so you can kind of see what you're looking at. So that's going to be 2 cuts. Here's a couple nice arm roasts that you can take and make in the crock pot. And we'll move on to the next piece. I'm only going to do half of this pig because the other half is exactly the same, just reversed. Here's your pork loin. This is a whole pork loin with the sirloin on it. What you want to do, or what I like to do, you can do whatever you like, but I've got 5 years of experience, so I come in here, I start freeing up. This would be what's considered your suet on a beef. It's got the kidney in there still. That's all right. Some places might take it out, some leave it in. Either way, it's going in the garbage. Right here, inside here is going to be your tenderloin. So you can kind of see that there's a little seam that's opening up right there. You want to be very careful with this part so that you don't get into that tenderloin, because that's a good cut of meat there. I like to hold my knife like this. If you don't feel comfortable with that, do it a different way. But come in here and you're gonna pull this piece out. Just keep working it, take your time, make sure you're not cutting into that loin, because that's a good piece of meat. Right here, this little piece, not this, this little piece would actually be your hanger steak if it were on a beef. We're gonna call it a trim steak because it's going into sausage. I just take a little bit more of this fat out of here so that my pork chops are ready. As soon as I'm ready to cut, they're ready to go. Turn this baby over. You're gonna want to trim some of this fat up right off the bat. I like to do it all in one piece. You can cut your chops and then trim them all, but I feel like this saves a little bit of time, and if you do a good job at it, they'll turn out just as good. You're just gonna take that knife through there. Do I have is this 2 bowls? Mm-hmm. Okay. So another thing is that don't throw away this lard. This stuff makes great pies. It's gonna make awesome fried chicken. I take 20 pounds of it home at a time, render it down. It's really easy to do. You can look online how to do that. It's just put it in the oven at 200 degrees, a little bit of water in the bottom of the pan, and basically let it melt down. It's going to turn into 2 different pieces. There's going to be some hard pieces, or not hard, but solid pieces. And then you're also going to have your clear fluid, which is what you actually want out of it. But render that down, use it for something, you know, don't put it to waste. I mean, it's better than butter in a lot of situations, especially if you got a good clean hog. Take and trim that out here. Once we get the lard off here, this is kind of a fat pig, you know, like I said, we've got a lot of farmers out there that are throwing away hogs because they can't find a home for them, and not even just because they can't find a home for them, because they actually can't find a butcher shop to take them. We've been working 70 hours a week to try to help that, but there's only so much you can do, and I'm actually out here doing this one on my free time. This one we're donating to a couple people in need, and it's Mother's Day, so what the heck. Alright, once you've got that trimmed up nicely, I'm a little, what do you call it, picky about how I do things, but it all eats the same. Whether or not it turns out perfect, it'll taste right. This is your tenderloin. All I'm doing is I'm taking that knife right along that bone, and I'm just following the bone, turning the knife, pulling it out, being careful to get that whole piece out of there at once. Okay, it'll come right up on top of the sirloin there. There's a little bit of a seam that you'll find, and that piece will come out whole. And you can take that piece, trim off the lard. There's this little, I don't even know what you call it, a piece of meat that runs on the side there, and then you're gonna have it like that. And there's always this little wing off to the side. That's part of the pork loin. Leave that on there. That'll make all kinds of good stuff for recipes. So we'll lay it down here where we got the rest of our good cuts. Just lay it up on top there. Now, if you're doing this at home and you don't have a bandsaw, which I'm assuming you don't, because I don't, you're going to want to do this boneless. There's an advantage to doing this boneless. One, you're going to get your baby back ribs out of it. But what you want to do is it's just the same as all the other pieces. You want to follow those bones. These are those rib bones, as close as you possibly can to the bone. And just keep following that bone. Okay. And these are going to be more of those little pin bones like I talked about. You can actually see them if I, basically there's one there, there's one there, there's one there. And you kind of just go around those and work your way so that you end up with a boneless pork loin in the end. This portion would be where your New York strips would start on a beef, or your T-bones. But we're doing it boneless, so there's no bones about it. Take that off. And just be real careful to stay close to those bones. This isn't, if you got time at home, take your time with it. I've been doing this for a little while, so I kind of know where those bones are going to be and whatnot, but any average Joe can take this thing home and do this. Might not look as nice when you're done, but like I said, it's going to eat just as good. There is, this is the sirloin bone right here, and if you took right here at that joint, you could actually split that piece off as a bone-in roast, and that works really good for a lot of things, but I like chops better myself, so what we're going to do is we're going to come in right next to this bone, and this is kind of a cup shape. I'll show you when we get it all done. And then right at the end of this bone, there's going to be a little dip in that way. And it doesn't really matter if you get all of that, but I'm going to. Like I said, I'm a little picky. So we'll go like that. Get all of that nice pork sirloin out of there. Pork sirloin is an underrated cut of meat. It's a good cut, but people don't recognize it because most stores don't carry it anymore, ever since boxed beef became a thing. But it makes just as good of a pork chop, and why waste it? So, Levi, will you hold this for me again? This is your whole boneless pork loin, ready to go, and all we're gonna do is slice that up into 1-inch pieces. Not complicated. Any monkey can slice stuff into 1-inch pieces. I'm gonna try to take these ribs off right here. Okay. So if you want to hold it like that, yep, and I'll just go straight down. Okay. Now I scun these close because I like to have as much pork loin as I can. If you get extra meaty pork loin ribs in the store, they're gonna have some of this pork loin on here to make sure you got more meat. If you wanna stay a little bit away from the bone so you got meatier ribs, that's fine. But either way, that's a good looking rack of baby back ribs. We'll put that over here next to our other stuff. Now this is the same as the neck bones. You can take and slice this up into pieces, use it for soup, get all of your meat off of there. It works good. If you do that, I would recommend taking out this spinal cord, but I'm not going to, so we're going to skip that part of it. Boneless pork loin. Like I said, very easy. See, garbage back in. Very easy. I don't have a big cutting board like I normally do, but we'll make this work. Do half of it at a time. Spread it out so that you can kind of take a look at what you're working with. I like to square up this end just a little bit so that you got a nice flat edge to start with. Throw that over in your trim bucket. And then I like 1-inch chops. Cut them however thick you want. It doesn't matter. Okay, try to keep your knife straight so you got a good line. And that right there is going to be your pork sirloin chop. Just as good as any other chop. Just you're not going to find it in the grocery store very often. Trim it up how you like it. Keep it on a tray, and we'll just keep slicing. I'm gonna try to do this part a little faster so that you don't have to just watch things get cut into 1-inch pieces for 20 minutes. When you get in between the sirloin and the regular loin, you're gonna run into a couple chops that just don't look quite right. If you're okay with that, I'm okay with that, but I'm not okay with that for myself. So I'm gonna take those two and I'm gonna throw them right over there into the trim bucket, make some sausage out of them. Then you're gonna start into your loin chops. 1 inch. 1 inch. Just lay them out. You can package those up, 2, 3, 4 to a pack, and whatever size your family is, package them up accordingly. We're gonna slice that whole thing up so that we got packages. And if it helps you, sometimes, like if I'm at the shop, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take those, I'm gonna make, let me see if I can get some room here to do it. I'm gonna take those, and I usually make stacks of 4. Say we're gonna make 4 chops at a time. Oops. I'm gonna take and make, say, 7 stacks, right? I think that'll end up 4 apiece. I might need 8. We'll go 8. That way you get a little bit of the sirloin chops, a little bit of the rest of the chops in every package. If you want to separate out the sirloin chops, you can. I like to get a little bit of everything in each pack. Like I said about the trim, if you get that back trimmed up good, these should look good in the end, and you won't have to do any more trim. I don't mind a little bit more fat on my pork chops. I think it keeps them a little juicier, so we're not going to worry about that. And the other thing is when you're breaking this bacon off, this tail that you leave on there, that's how close or far away from the pork loin you are. If you get too close when you're breaking that bacon off, you're going to take part of your pork loin. If you get too far away, like I'm just a little bit too far away, then you're going to get a little bit too much tail on your pork loin. So try to get it close. Like I said, the worst that's going to happen is it's going to taste exactly the same. So, like that. See, I got just a little bit too much on there. Now this piece at the end, a lot of times people like to make, what do you call them? Boneless country style ribs. If you cut those, usually you'll cut them at 1.5 inches, but cutting them a little thinner. And you just split them right down like that. Stand them up. Split that, stand them up. You got yourself a package of boneless country style ribs. That's just the rib end of the pork loin, that's all it is. I'm going to trim up a couple of these. We got 3, might have made too many stacks. All right. 4, and an extra. Good deal. Put these down with the rest of our stuff here. We'll give you a shot of how it all looks at the end, I think. So, stack up all our pork chops. Okay. 1 extra, make it a 5-pack for your country style up on there. Okay. Now you got your bacon. Which I've got covered here. This is a great piece of meat. If you don't want to cure and smoke it, if you're a fan of side pork, which a lot of people are, you can clean this piece up, take and slice it a little thick, throw it on with some dumplings, whatever works. This is your diaphragm muscle. You're going to want to take that off of there. Don't keep digging. It ends about right there. Take that diaphragm muscle out. That's going to be trim. We'll deal with that later. Any leaf lard, which is what this piece is called, what this big piece is your leaf lard. Some of it might be remaining on there. Peel that off. Take these ribs out. These are your St. Louis style spare ribs. You're just going to want to go along those bones like with everything else. Stay as tight as you can, or don't. You'll get extra meaty ribs that way, but you're going to lose a lot of bacon, and I'm not willing to sacrifice bacon. Well, you get a shot from this side because this is kind of hard to do. So all I did was I stuck my knife in about full length I'm going to turn my knife up towards that bone so that I'm scraping that bone clean. And I'm going to take my time and open that up. You get right there. Take my time and open that up and see how I'm keeping that just a nice clean line. Now you see there's a little bit here. If you do it wrong, you're going to get big cuts into your bacon. Try to take your time and really just stay close to that bone. That's going to give you more bacon. As you get towards the bottom, we got what we call feather bones. I can't remember which is which, but one rib has those on there. They're also known as rib tips. You're going to want to go through, but if you get too high into these bones, you can actually cut through them because they're cartilage. So you don't want to do that. You want to be real light with the tip of your knife. Open that up. Now I take it on the top side. Other people do it different. I open it up on the top side like this so that you can actually see those little bones that run like that. And that's all cartilage in there, and you can cut through it. And if you end up with bones in your stuff and you got a slicer at home, your slicer is not going to like it. So just take your time, make sure that you're getting all that out of there. There is a seam right here at the very end where those rib tips are coming out that you can just follow all the way down. Little brisket bone left on there. Take that whole piece off, just like that. Now, this piece is good enough as it is. If you want to cook it up how it is, that's fine. I'm not going to do that. At the end of the rib, where these rib tips are, there's this little bit of cartilage. Like I said, you can cut through it. You can actually see the white tip on that cartilage. You take it right at the end of the rib, and you know what you're doing. That piece comes off. I'm going to put that into trim. That's a good set of spare ribs. Put that aside. We got our spare ribs. We got our baby back ribs. We're doing good here. Now, you take your bacon. This would be towards the head side. This would be what we took off right next to the pork sirloin. This right here, for any of you who are curious, is actually your pork flank steak. Nobody uses pork flank steak, so we're not going to worry about it. But if you want to have fun at home, this actually does peel out of there. And if you cut it like this, I'll just show you. If you cut it like this and peel it out, it's going to look just like a beef flank steak that you buy at the store. You can probably make fajitas with it or something. I'm going to make sausage out of it. If you lift up your bacon, there is a flap here. And you can kind of see this line where it joins up. At the point where that joins up, right there, that's where you want to come across. Right there. So you're going to come up here and just square off your bacon. Normally, this is going to be a trim piece. All I'm going to do is take the meat off of it, the meat off of the back. You're saving lard. There is, if you look, let's see here, this one's got a pretty small one. There is a gland up in this piece of lard that you don't want to have in your lard. I normally throw all of the fat from this piece away. There's plenty of lard on the pig. Why waste the time? So that being done, this is your old bacon. Clean it up a little bit so it's to your liking. Get that good lard off of there. I like to square up this end so it's nice and square. Take this side, square it up a little bit, angle your knife so that you're getting a bunch of that fat off, so you got just good lean bacon when you're done. Okay, we got that done. That is a beautiful slab of bacon ready to you can either take and slice it for side pork. I'll show you a couple pieces like that. You can slice it into thick pieces like that. Normally, looks just like bacon, right? Normally side pork, you'll slice it in half and you can use it just like that. Otherwise, cure it and smoke it, but we're not going to do that today. So I'll throw that in the trim bucket. Bacon's ready to go. I'll just fold that in half and put it down here by our cut meat. Alright. So now, we've got our last piece. I'm going to do one of these boneless just to show you guys. The other one I think I'm going to take in and I'm going to have it cured. But if you don't have access to a smokehouse or cure or anything like that, and you're worried about it, I'll show you how to do this piece. This is your hog here. I usually just cut right through that tendon. And it should, if Levi didn't tie it so tight. Levi did a great job at tying that. It's okay though. Adam, will you come hold this ham up for me? This top bone piece we have to just hold on to it. This top bone piece we have to take off anyways, right about here. So that's fine. Just set it down on the table. Thanks. So now, same thing with that front leg. Well, you got this little bit of tailbone here. Take that off. Same thing with that front leg. You kind of see there's a depression here. That would be where your kneecap is, basically. If you cut in at the right spot, which might take you a couple tries, takes me a couple tries sometime, and I've been doing it for a long time. But you cut in right here, normally, you're going to find that knee joint. Everything moves well. Like I said, that's probably one of the toughest things about this is finding those joints. I'll show you. I'm actually in it right there. So we're just going to keep working through, keep working that joint like that. And then I'm going to take and cut. Once I've got it free, which I've got that whole joint free right there, I'm going to take and cut that all the way through. That's going to be another good pork hock. You can use that for soup or whatnot. I'm going to bone it out. I'm going to make sausage out of it. At this point, just a little bit of trimming. Take a little bit of that fat off of there. You don't need all that on your ham. Save that lard. You're going to love me when you start to make pies, because that's going to turn out really good. I like to stand it up and just kind of start shaving away at it. Get a little bit of meat, whatever, it's okay. This is for you and your family. This isn't a professional job. If you don't do it exactly the same way I do, don't worry about it. It'll taste the same in the end. It's all pork. Okay, so we got her pretty much trimmed up good. I like to leave a little bit of fat on the edges just to keep it juicy. Throw all that lard in our lard bucket. Then you're going to be dealing with the hip bone and the hip joint. Actually, I'll turn it this way. Right along this bone. And you'll understand this better when this piece comes out and you can actually see what the bone looks like. But you want to stay close, like always, peeling this bone out. You're going to hit a little bit of trouble right in here. If you come through, there is a joint right here with a little tendon in it. Oops. Try to turn it like that. Hard to do this and still make it so you can see it on camera. You go straight through that joint so that this is freed up. Okay, stay close to that bone. In here, there's a little piece that comes up like this. It's just tiny. It's not very big, but you want to go out and around that. If you go too far out and around, like I said, it's no big deal. Make sausage out of it. Make a mistake, make ground beef. Make a mistake, make sausage. Doesn't matter. You can kind of see there's just this little bump on there, and that might cause you a little bit of trouble. But now at this point, this right here is your top round. That's going to be great for making, this whole piece will be great for making jerky out of if you're going to make pork jerky. What you want to do is come straight down that ball joint. You're going to find your bone. You're going to go to the left-hand side of it with just the point of your knife right up against that bone. You'll feel it in there. Just the point of your knife is going to go right there. Okay? You're going to open it up just like that. See, I've just got the edge of the bone. There is a membrane right here that you can peel open and take your top round off with. Okay. that's your top round. You can take and slice this way for jerky. You can take and use it as a boneless roast. Whatever you want to do with it. We'll set that over here with our cuts. Other than that, just keep running around this bone using the tip of your knife so that you're not getting too deep into anything. Come around. Stay close. Okay. That's the femur bone right there. That's out of there. There is a little knuckle bone right here. That comes out of there pretty easily. I haven't used a steel this whole time, which is probably why we're having trouble. Membrane here. This right here is your sirloin tip. If you cut down, you're gonna find a little spot like that. I don't know. Basically, I like to take off the edges a little bit so that you have a nice round football looking piece. That's your sirloin tip roast. Put that next to her. Put that next to her top round. Last piece here. This in here with the little bit of stuff in there. We call that the rat tail. You can take, there's a seam there. You can take this little piece out. This is really tough. You don't want to try to eat that. That is not a piece you keep at any given time. Right here, there's this fat inside of it. There's another gland. That's another thing that you don't want to eat. If you go right beside what would be your eye of round and your flat or your bottom round, that'd be like a beef rump roast for those of you who are buying boneless meat nowadays. And you just take out that little piece of fat, and I'll see this one's got pretty small glands in it. It's a pretty healthy pig, but you can kind of see there is a gland in there, believe me. You can either leave it like this, which I usually do, or you can continue separating out this piece, but I'm not going to worry about that. From there, clean it up how you want it so that it's ready to go. You can slice this way for your jerky meat, or you can just keep this whole piece for a nice boneless roast. Now that is, other than the trimming, every piece that you need to know about how to cut up a half a pig, and the other half is exactly the same, so you should be able to figure that out on your own. This is Alex from Ace Meats showing you how to cut up a pig at home. If you got any questions, post up on the Ace Meats page. I'd love to answer them. Thank you.